have this weird trick that I'm going to share with you that's really helped me kind of figure out all the different players in the AI space. And when we hear news about them, like Meta, OpenAI, Anthropic, kind of what this news means and where their position is in the landscape, and probably what's going to come next. And my trick is that I just view it as basically one big game of Settlers of Catan. Because that's what this is. It's a strategic resource grab. This framework helps me evaluate kind of everyone's position on the board and also guess what moves they're probably going to try to make next. I'm going to quickly take you through the comparison, which maps out the framework, and then we're going to use that framework to assess OpenAI's position. And you don't need to have played this game to understand. In the game of Catan, there are 5 main resources like wool, brick, lumber, ore, that settlers are competing for, and whoever has the most of all the resources at the end of the game wins. There's some tones of colonization that we don't love about the game, but it's also about strategically competing for resources, and that is what's happening with AI. So in our game, the key 5 resources that the AI players are competing for are: the first is software or the models. This is kind of a duh. Whoever has a high-performing model is very rich in this resource. The next is cloud storage. It's not so sexy, but it's an infrastructure that's important and needed. Having this makes it possible to scale and store data effectively. Which leads to our next resource, which is data. To improve the models, you need more data. And this is becoming harder and harder since the free available data on the internet, and not free, has already been scraped. So getting access to gated data is pretty valuable. A fourth resource is hardware. This is like GPUs. It's the physical components used in computers. Finally, the 5th resource is energy. All this compute is going to need a lot of power. And as popularity and demands grow, it's only going to need more power. And a fun little extra is a development card, and that is implementation. This could include strategic partnerships or just having some type of access to get your technology into the hands of businesses and consumers easily. All right, so we know these are the things that everybody wants, and you'll see that these are the items that all the big players are grabbing for. Okay, so let's use this framework to break down OpenAI's position. Obviously, they have the resource of software and models, and this is where they have the most strength. Models like GPT-4 and o1 are at the top of the game. Likely GPT-5 is going to keep them there. But this is vulnerable because if another model comes along from a different company that's better, this knocks them down. The next resource that they do have is cloud storage. Their partnership with Microsoft gives them access to Azure's infrastructure, which is helpful for scaling. They kind of have the data resource. They've already leveraged the free available data on the internet. And of course, they're getting data from what users type into ChatGPT or upload into it. And they do have some deals with news publications to get their data as well. But this is all supplemental because they're going to need a lot more data to be able to improve their models. Another resource that they're kind of on is implementation. They kind of have a wild approach where they just release things into the market and then see how people use it and kind of have them figure it out for themselves. Which is fine, but there's other companies like Anthropic that have partnerships with Accenture that really has these consulting companies getting this technology out to businesses and implement it. I'm thinking OpenAI is also going to start establishing partnerships with consulting firms. Something just to strengthen that move towards implementation. Resources that OpenAI does not have, but we know they are going to be making moves to get them. First one is hardware. We know Sam Altman wants to make those GPUs. And if they could pull that off, that would give them the hardware resource and significantly help their position on the board. Finally, the last resource that they don't have is energy. OpenAI's got no energy. However, Microsoft has purchased a substantial amount of nuclear energy. I think this is the beginning of other players making similar moves. But with OpenAI, it's unclear when they are in competition or in partnership with Microsoft. So they might benefit from Microsoft's purchase, or they might not. So laying the cards out on the board, we've established that OpenAI is kind of in a vulnerable position. It has a top performing model, but others are coming up at its heels. My guess is that we're going to see OpenAI making some bold moves to both strengthen the resources it already has, but also build up the resources that it lacks. So that's the framework. I hope this is helpful. It's all just one big game.